Feeling a little bit overwhelmed from my day job, I brought my Olympus XA3 and of course a bunch of film for a quick getaway from the hustle and bustle of the city to the hustle and bustle of the beach. I said to myself that I'd figure out which film to use when I got there, whichever one spoke to me, and it was this interesting film. And it probably would have sounded something like this.
Excuse me.
This video is gonna be about LomoChrome Purple, a film that was intended by Lomography as a modern take to the long discontinued Kodak Aerochrome 3. I'll be talking about the characteristics of the film and comparing it to standard color negative film, looking at how different ISOs can affect the color and contrast of the resulting images, so we can find out which would be the best ISO to rate the film with, and also testing out a brand new camera. So sit back with a cup of coffee or any drink of your choice and join me this fine evening. I'm John and welcome back to the channel. So our spontaneous getaway brought us to Canyon Cove, a little resort with a big pool, a nice cove, and this ugly eyesore of a flotation device right in the middle. I'm only mad because you have to pay to use it, bummer, and I already spent most of my money on this new camera, the Yashica T Zoom. And spoiler alert, this camera is good. It's really good. But that will be a video for another day, so stay tuned. I fumbled around with opening my Olympus XA3 so I could load my newly acquired LomoChrome Purple. Somehow I always forget how to do this properly even though I've had this camera for about 8 months. But after finally figuring it out, I took a mirror selfie. Yeah, I knew that would happen. Let's try that again. After finally figuring it out, I took a mirror selfie. I decided to load LomoChrome on the Olympus XA3 and not the Yashica because this film doesn't have ADX code, so you need to be able to set your ISO or rate your film speed manually. And I can do that with the Olympus XA3. You can check out my previous video on rating film speeds, ISO, and more if you want to learn more about it. Then on my Yashica, I loaded Fujifilm 400 so I could take control shots with a regular color negative film and be able to do a comparison to see just how much the colors would shift. But before we get into that, what exactly is LomoChrome Purple? What does it do to your photos? What is its purpose in life? The first film developed by Lomography in the LomoChrome series, LomoChrome Purple was originally released in 2013 and was Lomography's way of filling the gap that was left open by Kodak Aerochrome 3, an infrared sensitive false color reversal film discontinued in 2009, making it all the more sought after by film enthusiasts. LomoChrome Purple takes inspiration from this unique film as its chemical formula creates an infrared-like color spectrum resulting to an otherworldly image, especially when shot in scenes with a lot of green foliage. According to Lomography, blue becomes green, yellow becomes pink, and of course, its most recognizable feature, green becomes purple. This film has an extended ISO range of 100 to 400, making it quite a versatile film, and can be developed in standard C41 processing, making it very accessible. One downside, however, and they do mention this on their website, is that black dots or artifacts can appear in the film negative. And I did notice this in a bunch of my photos, which I'll talk a little bit more later on. With its growing popularity, Lomography followed this up with LomoChrome Turquoise in 2015 and LomoChrome Metropolis in 2020. Let me know in the comments if you guys have tried any of these or if you want me to test them out in the future. Anyway, back to paradise, where I began my Lomo adventure at the beach. My plan was to take one photo with the Olympus XA3 and Lomo Purple, rated at ISO 200, then remembering my composition, take the same photo with the Yashica at a similar focal length with Fuji 400 to get a comparison. And of course, this was easier said than done because sand, salt water, and air, well, they don't really mix well with camera gear. So I had to be extra careful not to get any sand on my cameras as I was going back and forth to do my little experiment. Yes, this is what I was doing for the entirety of my trip. In this first photo, we can see that the blue skies are really turned a strong green, the yellow sand became pinkish, and the green foliage here was a muddy purple because that area was a little bit underexposed. Overall, a very cool effect, but also a very intense effect. I think it's definitely a love it or you hate it kind of look. As I combed the beach to make it look as good as my hair, I saw this blue chair all by its lonesome, so I took a photo, framing it within the cottage and hoping for the best. I always find it hard to take good photos at the beach, especially when there are a ton of people that can make your composition look messy. And sometimes you've been to one beach, it kind of feels like you've been to all of them. So I always try to look for those more interesting shots that you may not always find. As the day was about to end, I saw a couple at the very tip of the cove, and unintelligently, and you won't be able to see it here, I waded through knee-deep water twice so I could take these photos. It was a good thing, however, because I was able to see that Lomo Purple really kind of crushes the shadows a little bit more, whereas Fujifilm 400 was able to handle the shadow details a little bit better in this backlit scene. But of course, this could also be due to the metering of the different cameras I was using. That night, while waiting for our barbecue dinner, we were treated to a fire dance performance. Not expecting much and having only brought the Yashica camera, I went up front, took a photo, and holy shit. I was expecting the photos to be a blurry mess because of the combination of the low light and my shaky, anxiety-ridden hands, but yeah, these were definitely fire. Early morning the next day, we went out and I continued my little excursion with Lomo Purple. It was a calm day and I definitely appreciated the cove a little bit more because there weren't a lot of people out yet. As usual, coming in from an air-conditioned room the entire night and going out into the sunny morning, well, let's just say the change in temperature conditions gave my camera a temporary mist filter. Nothing a little wiping couldn't fix, and a little bit of time to pass for the temperature to normalize and we finally got some mist-free photos. Then I saw this monstrosity again. I decided to challenge myself to take a good photo of this floating wonderland, and of course I had to risk my non-waterproof cameras for this, again, in order to get the composition that I wanted. Was it worth it? Probably not, but I think this definitely looks better on regular color negative film, as the color shift in the Lomo Purple film made the entire scene look washed out and kinda flat. So if you are planning to use this film, it's good to know how the colors will shift so you'll have an idea if the colors in your photo are going to complement each other after the fact. We then headed back for a quick dip at the pool to cap off our day before checking out of the resort. I've never been one to take good photos poolside, but there was something nice about the way the pool was designed here. I also noticed these, whatever these were, which somehow on that particular day I just found them interesting. They sort of remind me of game assets in those backroom or liminal space games, where you end up in an empty pool of some sort. So I wanted to see if I could capture that sense of empty space in my photos. And I think it worked well for both shots. I also risked my camera again, just the Yashica this time, to take a photo from the pool looking out into the sky. I feel like this worked better in my head, but I'd say there's some merit with this shot. I mean, I risked destroying a brand new camera, so yeah, it's a good photo. As we were heading out of the resort, I took some nice portrait shots of these abandoned buildings right at the exit. The only thing missing here is a ghostly apparition to solidify the main focal point of the image. A short MRT ride several days later took us to a scenic park in Vertis North. I had about 10 or so shots left in my Olympus XA3, and this was a perfect spot to finish off my Lomo Purple experiment. As the film has an extended range of 100 to 400, I wanted to take several shots of the same composition, rated at different ISOs, 100, 200, and 400, to see if there would be a significant change in the way the image would come out. I started looking for good compositions right off the bat that would work, and you'll notice me just looking disappointed most of the time because I just didn't know where to start. But after a while of scoping out the location and saying hi to these cute cats, I finally ended up picking this colorful mural in one area. So trying my best to be a model, but failing miserably, we were able to get the shot with Fuji 400, the Lomo Purple rated at 400 ISO, then at 200, and then at 100. Looks to me that the purple colors are a little bit more muted at 400, though there is more contrast in the overall image, while the purples are a bit punchier in the 200 and 100 ISO rated photos. Though I don't see much of a difference between 200 and 100 except for that they have lesser contrast overall. For the second shot, we went to the center of the park and I wanted to include this walkway which I thought had some interesting lines. I was lucky enough that there was someone walking across, so I could at least have that sense of movement in this composition. This is the photo with Fuji 400, then this is the Lomo Purple rated at 400, then at 200, and then at 100. And so far, same observations with the first one, with the Lomo Purple 400 having more muted purples. And finally, I wanted a shot where it was just the subject and a lot of greens to get that color contrast in the final image. Here it is with Fuji 400, then Lomo Purple rated at 400, then at 200, and then at 100. Again, I think we have the same observations. If you guys can spot anything else, please let me know in the comments. Now, this isn't really a comprehensive experiment, so take from this what you will. These results were based on my two cameras, the lighting conditions during that bright sunny day, and this could also have been affected by lab processing and scanning. But just looking at the results of the different ISOs, for my personal use, if I were to use this film again, and I most likely will for very specific occasions, I'd probably stick to 100 or 200 so that I can get that punchy purple, which is what we want to see in this film. But as always, give it a try for yourself and see what works for you. And now for the downside, which I mentioned earlier, and I came across this while going through some forums. LomoChrome Purple apparently suffers from some black dots or artifacts in the film negative, which they do state in their website. So when I got my scans, that was the first thing that I checked. I noticed some white artifacts on the film negative, which turned to black in the final image, and also the opposite. Sometimes you could barely see them, but other times, well, yeah, they're right there. Overall though, most of my images turned out okay, but this was just one roll, so I don't know exactly how prevalent this is. Some people have pointed out that they've never had any issues with their film, but some also mentioned that it could be some problems with quality control. I am inclined to assume that this is coming from the film itself and not from processing or scanning, because I did have both of my films, the Fujifilm 400 and the LomoChrome Purple, processed at the same time, and the Fujifilm 400 came out quite clean. So that's my foray into LomoChrome Purple. As always, this was a lot of fun. When I first started out with film photography, it was very frustrating but fun. But now it's turned into something that is fun and fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Let me know in the comments if there's any film you'd like me to try. Please subscribe if you haven't yet to support the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!